My name is Rhianon Gutierrez, and I'm coming to you from the Boston Public Schools. My role is the Director of Digital Learning, so I'm based in our technology department. Our tech department is kind of unique because we have both information and instruction technology. So my team specifically focuses on technology for teaching and learning. So we're a team of about 9, but we are in a large urban district. So a little bit about our demographics. We have about 121 schools this year, and we serve close to 50,000 students, but we have like a very wide range of students. And so most of our students are Latinx and Black. We also serve a small population of white students, Asian students, and others who are mixed race like myself. We have about 42% of students whose first language is not English, 30% of English learners, including 7% of English learners with disabilities, and about 20% of students who are identified as being on IEP, that is students with disabilities, and then also about 68% are economically disadvantaged. So we wanted to make sure that we were taking into account our demographics as we were selecting tools, and we're always trying to be very mindful with our tool selection. So, as I mentioned, we are a pretty big district. We have about 121 schools, and so our makeup is really interesting because we're actually trying to shift to have schools that are like K to 6, and then like 7 to 12 or 8 to 12, because we want to have less transitions in between school buildings because our district is so large and it was spread out across different neighborhoods. And so we've actually been an adopter of Sora for the past 2.5 years. It landed in my lap because I'm situated in the tech department, and our director of library services was actually interested in adopting Sora because she had been communicating about needing a tool that provided certain access for our students. We have used tools like Learning Ally and Read and Write by Text Help, and so we were thinking about tools that would be truly UDL tools available for everyone. However, you may or may not know that Learning Ally, you can't necessarily have all students use that tool. You may have to be a little bit more specific. So our library director was like, we're having a challenge with giving students access to text. So we want to look at what's available out there. So she said, let's look into Sora. And I was like, wait, hold on, let's just talk about this. Because one of the things that happens sometimes, depending on what kind of district you're in, if you're in a large district, sometimes you retroactively find out about tools. They're like, oh, we bought this. Can you integrate it? And I'm like, what tool? Why did we pick this? And so I was really grateful for our librarian for actually being really thoughtful about it and wanting to engage us in this discussion. So we don't actually have librarians across all of our schools. So she knew this was going to be a challenge, but she still wanted to have text available to students. So these are some factors as to why we chose Sora. So access to ebooks and audiobooks without needing a library card. That's one of the things that's really nice about this. In fact, when we first started to use the tool, everyone who was a librarian was like, oh, I'm having the kids put the library cards in. And I was like, that's great. They don't actually need to do that. They're like, yeah, but I want them to learn how. But the thing is that doesn't have to be a barrier. You can actually have students access text today without a library card if you use Sora. So that was helpful. I mentioned the librarians piece. We don't have one in all of our schools, so we want to have text available. And we also wanted to think about ease of access and make sure that it was easily accessible by our students. We are also a Clever district. So all of our teachers, K-12, specifically K-6, want to see those apps in Clever. They're like, is it in Clever? Do I have access? So that's why it was really, really important for us to make sure that it integrated with Clever when we first adopted it. And we also wanted to have a tool that had language supports. As I mentioned, our demographics have students who have varying language needs. We have about 13 major languages in BPS, and so that's quite large. And so we want to make sure that they can access it. And then another thing that's really cool, I don't know if this is the case in all states, but we actually have access to not only books from our Boston Public Library, we have access to books across the state through this, I think, this reciprocal lending agreement. And so if they're not finding the book they want in the Boston Public Library, they could check CLAMS, Merrimack, and all these other networks to find a book, which is amazing. And I don't think many people knew they can do that. I'm still educating people today about that. So that's just a plus. Also, how many people in this room actually know what Sora is? okay? So it's like half and half, okay? So Sora, is a great app. You can actually go ahead and put it on your phone if you'd like, and you can sign in. You can download the app for your phone. You can go to the website to soraapp.com. And we have some great staff here, including Judy and Tracy and Bailey and some others. I can't remember everyone's names. And Angela. So just ask them about the app and how you can get started in your school. Also, I do want to also show you some features that Sora has. It includes single sign-on. As you know, like when you have a ton of apps, you don't want to be logging in with these special accounts and passwords every time. So if you have a Google domain, you guys can easily just sign in. If you go into Clever, you can easily sign in. And it's multilingual, as I mentioned. It's easy to browse and borrow. There's literally that simple button where you can click to borrow the tool and also to return the book on the same day if you really want to do it that quickly. You can also have different assignments. We don't utilize this feature very often. And there's offline access, so just like an ebook, and then also the public library digital collection. I do want to mention that you could choose to buy books too if you'd like. We haven't done that as much as a district because we, being such a large district, we do have to acquire funding, think about it. But the thing about utilizing Sora is that if you do purchase text, the value of that is simultaneous reading. So if you're in, different classrooms like across the district, everyone can be reading the same text. Like we use expeditionary learning at BPS, and so we have books in there like Love That Dog, Esperanza Rising, Venom, and so those have been ones that have been acquired. I'm not sure to what degree they're going to actually add more text, but I know they wanted to primarily focus on grades 3 to 5 and giving them that simultaneous access to those texts. So a little bit about our adoption. I mentioned this is a 2.5-year journey. We first launched it in January 2020, just before the pandemic. And then it got a major push in March 2020 because of COVID. So a lot of educators are like, where can I get books? Where can I get texts? And people were printing out all these copies. It was just like, this isn't really feasible. And so what can we do? And so we were really working with people from Overdrive and Sora to do different trainings on how to access the tool. And then in fall 2020, that's when our district texts were added for grades 3 to 5 for expeditionary learning. And then this past summer and fall, we actually have a focus district-wide on equitable literacy. And it's grounded very heavily in the work of Dr. Alfred Tatum, if you're not familiar with him. He talks a lot about complex text and enabling text. And so we're trying to make sure that we are really, truly providing the text that our students need access to, not just the classic text that you're familiar with. You want to go beyond that and have them cultivate a love for reading. So we were really intentional about pushing Sora across the district. And right now it's being widely promoted as a tool to access text across BPS. We have summer reading lists. If you caught my QR code at the beginning, I'll be happy to share that with you again. You can see that we actually have several summer reading lists. And if you really poke around on our website a bit, you'll learn a little bit more about equitable literacy and Tatum's work. So one of the things that was absolutely crucial about Sora and BPS is that, being such a large district, not everyone's going to know this tool is out there, so you really need to have a team to make this work. So this was a combination of people from academics, from libraries, from technology, and that partnership was so crucial to say we have this available. And our librarians have been on the ground making all these trainings. In fact, I've linked to a couple of their trainings where they're just going over some of these different features that you can use in Sora. We also wanted to make sure that we were being very intentional about Tier 1 and Tier 2 support. So if you have initial questions, where do you go to find these resources? And so we have a help doc that we have created. So our help docs are essentially a one-stop shop for any EdTech tool that we have that goes over what is this tool, who has access in BPS, who do I contact for resources and what are some learning resources for me. So we've done that, and we did that right away with Sora when we adopted it. We worked with Tracy, who's one of the sales reps around here, and Renee and Angela to do that. So that was a really helpful resource. And then certainly Sora has a help center that's really, really valuable. I mean, you want something quick and easy. So if you're in the app and you're like, how do I do this? You can just click and find out. It's super easy. I mean, this is like one of the easiest tools that we've onboarded in the district. And then, of course, we know that people want to make it a little bit personal for their students, and so that's why we've created the webinars. But we also wanted to be intentional about having custom trainings for schools, because we do have schools that want to know, how can I use Sora? And I actually did a training recently with occupational therapists who were looking for tools they can use with their students, specifically like assistive technology and UDL tools that would be really valuable. And what we did was we presented them a variety of digital text options that they had and who the audience would be. So if you're looking for this, go here. If you need support in this way, go here. And so Sora has always been at the top of our list. I mean, one of the drawbacks is that, if you are taking out a library book, you'll have, 14 days to keep it, and you have to return it. But it's a little bit different, I believe, with the simultaneous text where kids can access that all at once. I'm not familiar with the pricing structure there. If that's, again, something that these Sora reps could talk a little bit more about. But we've really enjoyed adopting the tool, and I have to say that I get different emails like once a month or so, being in my office, where they share different ways they're using the tool. They're asking me for tips and tricks. And one of my favorite things to tell people about the tool is the fact that, again, we don't have just one library. We have multiple libraries that people can utilize to find the book that they want. The other day, how many people here are familiar with the March graphic novel series by John Lewis? We need to get more hands up for this. I don't know if you guys have it around here somewhere. It is a phenomenal graphic novel series, March, by John Lewis. And I had an 8th grade teacher reach out to me, and she said, do you have this available? And I was thinking, oh no, I'm wondering if maybe there's only like one copy. And then when I did a search, I actually found that there was a copy of it at all these different libraries. And so I was super excited about that, so that she can, have enough for all of her students, and it wasn't just one student at a time waiting like 2 or 3 days to get the next copy. But it's been really wonderful just to see teachers really adopt it and want to share it with each other. And I'm going to ask them after the summer reading this summer, like, what books did you read? What did you like about Sora? And also this summer we plan to do a little training on equitable literacy and to share different resources that are out there. And Sora is going to be at the top of my list for that.